Welcome to virtual Meet the Developers. I'm Suzette Mahoney, a partner at R2L Restaurant and the president of CCPA. CCPA is an intimate and diverse group of business owners, executives, and managers looking to build relationships and offer each other meaningful resources. At CCPA, we take pride in bringing you unparalleled access to speakers, decision makers, and leaders who are shaping Center City. We keep our members informed about business challenges and opportunities in Philadelphia and help them become Center City smart. As we figure out how to help Philadelphia's business community overcome the many challenges that lie ahead, we want to assure you we are going to be by your side every step of the way, and we will continue to shift our programming and networking offerings to best support our members and guests. We want to hear from you, so please use the chat feature throughout the program to send us suggestions. To mention a few events that are coming up, join us tomorrow for Lunch with City Leaders with Patrick Harker, the President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, and on July 29th with Lauren Gilchrist, Senior Vice President, Senior Director of Research, JLL Philadelphia. We have a new series, The State of Hospitality, which starts on July 23rd about restaurants, and then on August 4th about the hotel industry. You can find a full schedule of our events on centercityproprietors.org. So let's review a few details about today's event. We are recording this so we can share it with you all afterwards. Please use the chat feature to ask questions, and feel free to make comments or suggestions and connect with each other. We will mute everyone to maintain audio and visual controls, but we may invite you to unmute at certain times. As a reminder, you are live on video. If you need to take care of business, feel free to turn off your video. We are pleased to collaborate with and welcome members of Crew Philadelphia and BIA Philadelphia. Finally, I'd like to thank today's sponsors, without whom these events wouldn't be possible. CCPA's preferred benefits provider, Michael Craig of Penworth Financial Services, our sustaining sponsor, WeWork, Domus Construction, Friedman LLP, Obermayer, Redmond, Maxwell and Hipple, ServPro, and TD Bank. And now I would like to welcome Damian Gee, Senior Vice President and Regional Vice President of the Greater Philadelphia Lending Group at TD Bank.
Thank you. On behalf of TD Bank, good morning, and thank you all for attending today. TD is proud to support CCPA in this event series for another year. TD Bank is one of the 10 largest banks in the U.S., providing more than 9 million customers with a full range of retail, small business, and commercial products and services at more than 1,200 convenient locations throughout the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Metro DC, the Carolinas, and Florida. We're so glad to be able to help over 80,000 clients with PPP loans across the United States. And if anyone still has issues, please contact us. Our commitment to the local real estate in Greater Philadelphia market is important to us. And as you continue to evaluate your real estate portfolio, we'd love to help you with any needs to help you grow your business. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Center City Proprietors Board Member and event sponsor, Suzanne Spinell-Schuster from Friedman LLP. Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Damian, and good morning to everybody. I am Suzanne Spinell-Schuster, Director in charge of Accounting Services at Friedman LLP. I am also a very proud member of CCPA's Board of Directors, and I am thrilled that Friedman is a sponsor of this event, and I look forward to hearing from our panel of experts. Friedman LLP has been serving the accounting, tax, and business consulting needs of public and private companies since 1924, with offices in Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, California, and Beijing. The real estate industry's propensity for rapid growth and change continues to generate new challenges, especially in light of the changes brought about by the inception of the CARES Act most recently. Our real estate practice works with owners, developers, contractors, real estate investors, institutional owners and lenders, property management companies, and brokers to address the complexities of this ever-changing industry and to capitalize on new opportunities. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator. Natalie Kostelny has researched and written about commercial and residential real estate and economic development for the Philadelphia Business Journal since 1999. She received her undergraduate degree at Villanova University and a master's in journalism from the University of Missouri, Columbia. She lives in the Valley Forge area with her husband and daughter. So please join me in waving a warm welcome to Natalie Kostelny.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the Center City Proprietors Association Meet the Developers. We have a really good panel before us today, and they represent different but equally important aspects of Philadelphia's real estate community. We have Clayton Mitchell, Senior Vice President, Real Estate and Facilities at Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals. We have Leslie Smallwood Lewis, co-owner of Mosaic Development Partners, Paul Stanke, Executive Director of the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia, and Blaine Stoddard, President and CEO of BFW Group. Before we get into the panel, let me spend a few minutes talking about where Philadelphia is these days. Philadelphia has been undergoing a development boom for what I would argue is for the last 2 decades. 2 decades, and it really took off 10 years ago. And let's take a look back before we look at the present and look forward with our panelists. The seeds for this development boom started in 1997 with the passage of the first 10-year tax abatement on the conversion of existing buildings into other uses. This led to more apartments and hotels. 2 years later, in 1999, the 10-year tax abatement was expanded to include new construction. That meant conversions and new ground-up development received the benefits of the abatements. It applied to office, industrial, retail, hotel, and residential development. During the onset of the Great Recession, when construction spending came to a halt, development still occurred in Philadelphia thanks to the 10-year tax abatement, Freddie Mac, which financed multifamily development, and millennials who flocked to urban areas such as Philadelphia. Experts say millennials flock to urban centers because of the increased attractiveness of cities, and that is true. But the Great Recession also had something to do with it. Urban centers were where job opportunities were, and frankly, you don't need a car in a city, which millennials couldn't afford at the time, and they don't love driving anyway, as other generations have embraced. There were also more apartments in urban centers, which meant a millennial with lots of student debt could, and an entry-paying job could double, triple up with roommates to make that apartment affordable. Steadily, development began to push into so many neighborhoods, causing gentrification, which has its pros and cons, and the decimation of structures with historical and architectural significance. This development activity does produce jobs, whether that's an electrician, painter, architect, or engineer. It also provides investment and supports the city's economy. So here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Social injustice is top of mind, and we're in a recession. Construction is still going on. The 10-year tax abatement is being rolled back eventually, and jobs and investment are under threat as we enter deeper into an economic downturn. Let's get into our panel conversation. At this time, I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and take 1 to 2 minutes to tell us about their company or organization and a couple of current projects they are working on. As moderator, please know that my role is to keep us on time and to give everyone a chance to talk. I may cut you off if I feel we need to move on. And to the audience, please feel free to send in questions. So let's go ahead and start with Paul. Paul, tell us a little bit about the Preservation Alliance and what you're working on these days.
You're on mute, Paul.
Yep, got it. Thank you, Natalie. And I still enjoy reading your column every week in the Philadelphia Business Journal. Keep up the good work. So the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia is a not-for-profit membership-based advocacy and education organization promoting historic preservation as a tool for economic development in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding region. We were founded in 1996, so next year is going to be our 25th anniversary. And we advocate for historic buildings with city agencies, particularly the Philadelphia Historical Commission. We nominate properties for the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places, which helps to protect them from inappropriate alteration or demolition. We maintain a portfolio of preservation easements, which are private agreements between property owners and the Alliance to ensure the preservation of historic properties, and the owners can then access significant tax benefits through the easement program. We run a series of member services and events, lectures, educational sessions, and so forth. And we run the city's really only regular series of architectural walking tours through the neighborhoods of Philadelphia, which are on hiatus during the pandemic, but which we're making preparations to resume with appropriate precautions, social distancing, and so forth. So that's the Preservation Alliance. Our offices are at 16th and Walnut, and we really think historic buildings are an important part of what Philadelphia is and of its future. I'll just close by saying that Philadelphia has about 500,000 structures, and about 2/3 of them, or maybe almost 70%, were built before World War II. And they really give the Philadelphia the character of built environment that we think sets it apart as an American city compared to other places.
Thank you, Paul. And of course, in your background, you have one of those buildings.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Terrific. Leslie, let's turn to you. Tell us a little bit about Mosaic and some of the projects you're working on.
Thank you, Natalie, and good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Smallwood-Lewis, and I am one of the principals of Mosaic Development Partners. We are a boutique minority-owned real estate development firm, and our office is located in Strawberry Mansion. That's what you see as my virtual background, and we were fortunate to actually win one of the Preservation Alliance's esteemed jury awards for the adaptive reuse of this warehouse. From what we were told, we were actually the only project in the country that was approved without a roof. So we're very proud of that project. My company to date has developed over $100 million in projects, and we do not focus actually in the center city area. We work in some of the toughest neighborhoods in the city, and we've been very intentional about that. Obviously, we are one of the few African-American developers in the city, and we've been very committed to working in disenfranchised communities where the people that live in those communities look like my partner and I. We've been very careful and very intentional not to gentrify, but what we call gentrigate, which is you do need to bring in new commerce, new residents into the community, but you have to be very much respectful of being able to integrate with those that have been there and those that have really suffered through the worst of times. So when we go out and look for our commercial tenants, we are very, very committed to Black and brown companies and women-owned companies to be tenants in our projects. We figure out creative ways to assist them with capital, with startup, because that is something that's been a real issue, and we'll get into that more so when we talk about social injustice, where there's been a lack of capital provided for Black and brown companies. So we really focus very much on how do we get these startups into our projects. We also reach out into networks that are typically not that realtors do not typically go out to be able to actually bring residents into these projects. So we tap into those now as well. And we've been able to maintain affordability in our projects in a couple of ways. We use special financing through the federal program of New Market Tax Credits. We have been doing modular construction now for years to keep down the cost of construction avoid some of the upcharges of unions, just being very honest. But to be able to build these projects in the neighborhoods where you don't get the rents in Center City, but the construction cost is the same, you do have to find creative ways to make these projects economically work. We are now currently working on a project in Wayne Junction, modular construction for a portion of it. Hopefully it will be opening this September. It's 35 apartments and about 25,000 square feet of commercial space. We've combined new market tax credits, opportunity zone, and crowdfunding, a unique way of bringing in local residents into the investment structure. And we're also working on a project in Sharswood with the Philadelphia Housing Authority, where that will come to construction closing in August. I'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. But excited to be here. This is a great panel, and I think we have a lot to talk about today. So thank you, Natalie.
I think so too. Leslie, before I jump to Mitch, what's your background that we're seeing as you?
That's actually Eastern Loft. That is the project that won the Preservation Award. That's where our office is located.
Oh, terrific. Great. Mitch, let's jump to you. Tell us a little bit about your work at Jefferson and how long you've been there.
Hey, thanks a lot, Natalie. I'm relatively new to Philadelphia. I've been at Jefferson for about a year. Just a little bit about my background, and it'll sort of give you sort of some insights on where Jefferson's headed. So I'm a retired Navy Civil Engineer Co-Officer, did 25 years in the Navy, kind of cut my teeth in real estate as Director of Real Estate for the Japan region of Navy. I was also the project executive for the Walter Reed expansion at Bethesda. Been a legislative assistant to the Senate Majority Leader, special assistant for civil engineering to the Secretary of the Navy, and then I was also vice president of Global Public Works for Naval Facilities Engineering Command. So it's really about large systems, bringing complex systems of people, systems, and technology together to deliver infrastructure. Retired from the Navy. Worked for Kaiser Permanente, a large health system on the West Coast for 7.5 years. Last job was the Vice President of Facilities Operations for Kaiser Permanente. So now at Jefferson, with Dr. Klatsko's consolidation of several systems here, bringing in the university, there's a significant need to develop a corporate real estate and facilities capability for Jefferson. Jefferson, as you know, has 14 hospitals throughout the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, mostly in the Northeast, North, and Center City sections of Philadelphia, and then on the outer rings of suburban Camden. But our real focus is introducing healthcare with no address across the portfolio. And so that means there's a marriage between our infrastructure and the home. And so everything from the home all the way to the most acute healthcare platforms being our hospitals, we have a significant imperative to drive value and affordability and quality across that entire platform. But healthcare is in a bit of a transition. In years past, it's been very inpatient centric. And so it's been centered around the hospital. And now there's a migration from the hospital, which is the most expensive platform to deliver care, towards the home. And as we migrate towards the home, going from hospitals, now there's the need to develop more ambulatory capability, which we have, but not in the integrated form that we're going to need to really sort of drive value going forward. And so Center City, folks that have driven down Chestnut Street between 11th and 12th and Chestnut, you'll see a demolition going on, and that's to make way for a 450,000 square foot ambulatory pavilion for the Center City area. That facility is primarily intended to migrate ambulatory services from our hospital platform into that platform. We know it is the future for healthcare. We know that we will be able to drive significant value we know that we will be able to leverage technology to make care more accessible to the patients of Jefferson. And we know that one of the secrets, or one of the secret sauces to driving value, is to be very efficient with the volume that we have and attentive to the needs of our patients. And so, along with that, we have several projects going on in some of our other divisions. We're split into 5 divisions. A division in New Jersey, which right now has the most construction going on. We have 2 towers under construction, one at the Washington Township and a second one in Cherry Hill. And so those will greatly enhance our capabilities in New Jersey. We also have an outpatient infusion center being added to our Torresdale facility. So those are the biggest projects that we have going on. But at this point in time, we are completing a clinical network optimization assessment, and that will inform our strategy going forward as we power through COVID and work to get to Dr. Klasko's vision.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Mitch. Welcome to Philadelphia. Let's go to Blaine. Blaine, tell us a little bit about your work, what you're working on today, these days.
Good morning. My name is Blaine Stoddard. I run BFW Group. We're a construction project management company. I have an ongoing bet with Leslie that I'm going to be the shortest this morning, so you can start your timer. I am so glad to be on this esteemed panel with you, Natalie, with Damian Gee, with Leslie Smallwood, with Ben Frank, with Clayton Mitchell, who I work for. I'm a project manager for the New Jefferson. You forgot to mention the New Jefferson Tower at 1101 Chestnut, but I'm the assistant project manager with CBRE. Paul Stanke, whom I've known for how many years. And those of you that I have not met, Stephen Mullen is on this call from eConsult. I'm on his advisory board. But those of you that I have not met, I look forward to meeting you. These are really exciting times. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what BFW does. BFW does construction project management, construction administration, QA/QC, quality assurance, quality control, construction inspections, and safety, project safety and project controls on commercial projects in this region. And we're certified in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. And as a small business, I'll tell you boldly, we're looking for work. I was just saying that these are extremely challenging times, but in every challenge, there's the opportunity. And I hope that this panel can begin to identify some of the opportunities, because every time there's a downturn, every time the real estate market crashes, every time there's a pandemic, there are opportunities that come out of that. And I think the value that we could give to the listeners this morning is telling them what kind of value, what's the future going to look like. Bill Gates put a PC on every desk when we were using mainframes. That's these computers in these rooms that had air-conditioned rooms to keep the computers from burning up. And everybody had to be in the building tied into a mainframe. But Bill Gates had that vision. And so the question today is, what is the vision for the future? And how can we come out in one piece? Or how can we excel coming out of all this, all the challenges we now face?
Terrific. Thank you so much, Blaine. That's pretty inspiring as well. But let me go back to Paul, and this is our first question for the panel. I wanted to find out how the coronavirus and the pandemic has affected your business, your organization, and some of the projects that you are working on. Have you had to curtail or adjust any projects, or even change design? So Paul, from the preservation perspective, how has the coronavirus affected you?
Well, so like most organizations, we transitioned as much of our programming online as we could. We moved a lecture series we were running about Philadelphia architectural history to Zoom and ran that for about 3 months, and got people logged on from all over the country and around the world, which showed us, and I mean that, Brazil and Australia were countries represented, which we never could have done with an in-person series. So that was an eye-opener for us. And we started communicating more aggressively with our members through email and social media. trying to give them some good news outside of all the bad news about the pandemic, and got very good reviews on that. We had to move our annual awards event, and Leslie mentioned that Eastern Lofts won a Preservation Achievement Award in 2016. We were going to do ours in June, and we've transitioned that to a virtual event, again, like a lot of organizations are doing, and are working on making that as compelling and interesting, an hour-long program as we can, as we honor the best historic preservation and adaptive reuse projects of the past year in Philadelphia. And finally, I'll say the killing of George Floyd and the reemergence in a big way of the Black Lives Matter movement has caused us to do some internal soul searching about our programming and our priorities. And we've created an internal board and staff committee to take a look at that, and are looking for ways to be more intentional about our outreach with and cooperation with communities of color as we continue to push our message of historic preservation.
That's terrific. Yeah, I want to delve into some of the social injustice issues in Black Lives Matter. Before I jump, there's a quick audience question for you, Paul, and it has to do with Jewelers Row. Was that not considered historic?
The answer is yes and no. Yes, it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, so it did have federal status as a historic district as part of a larger Center City East Historic District. It was created in the 1980s. That's important for accessing federal historic preservation tax credits, which, not to harp on Leslie too much, but Mosaic used them to do Eastern Lofts. And that's really a main reason why properties and districts get listed on the National Register. However, it's only the local register, the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places, that provides protection for historic buildings. And most of Jewelers Row was not listed on the Philadelphia Register, which by law can protect buildings. A handful of buildings are listed, but the ones that were recently demolished in December by Toll Brothers were not. And so it really tied our hands in trying to block that project, which we now know is not going forward anyway. In the meantime, we have nominated the remainder of Jewelers Row as a Philadelphia Historic District, and that nomination is working through the approval process as we speak.
Okay, great. Thank you. Leslie, tell us a little bit how the coronavirus and the pandemic has affected your business and your projects. Have you had to change anything that you're doing?
Yeah, it's affected us in multiple ways because we don't focus on one particular kind of project. So from our student housing project, obviously once the schools closed down, that impacted us significantly because all of the students really returned home. And then obviously if you're not collecting rent, because it's an off-campus project, you can't pay your debt service. So fortunately, most lenders have been very amenable and providing deferments and forbearance of payments until we work our way through this COVID-19 situation. We've also had some issues. We have a daycare in our Eastern Lofts project. They were shut down as well. But we've worked with her. She's been able to provide us with partial payments, that kind of situation. Also, we've seen it in our residents who have lost their jobs, that, were delayed in getting their unemployment, so you're seeing it across the board, how people were very much impacted by COVID-19. But on the flip side, we also have a community shopping center where fortunately most of our tenants were essential services. So they continue to operate, they continue to conduct business. So we weren't really impacted there. And in reference to our project that's in construction, you do start to look at, do you need to do some things differently? We have a restaurant space in that project. We're more focused on looking at takeout as opposed to a sit-down offering at this point. We have a co-working space. We're looking for ways to better sanitize so people feel comfortable when we're coming back from COVID-19, that there's going to be this kind of sanitization program and process in place for people to start to feel comfortable and more confident. Fortunately, our project with the Philadelphia Housing Authority, again, essential services, is anchored by a grocery store, urgent care, bank. So these are the types of businesses that have been able to still conduct business and actually thrive during this COVID-19 time. So that project is still going forward. And fortunately, the Philadelphia Housing Authority is serving as the lender on that project. So we did not have any issues in regards to lenders saying, let's halt, let's just see where this is all taking us. Philadelphia Housing Authority is very committed to the restructuring and bringing back the Sharswood neighborhood in a master plan. So they're very committed. So they're going to continue moving forward with that project. That's a project that we're working on with Blaine. He's our owner's rep on that project. So there's been good, bad, but overall, we're making it through, and we can see the other side.
I'm happy to hear that. That's wonderful. Mitch, tell us how's real estate? We know Jefferson's been in the thick of things during the pandemic, but in terms of real estate and development, how has it affected you, and has Jefferson changed any of its design or approach to real estate in light of it?
Mitch.
Oh,
I talked a little bit about why I ended up at Jefferson. We essentially started a transformation of our corporate real estate and facilities capability a year ago. And a lot of that was centering around real estate rationalization. So we were in this process of rationalizing this 15 million square feet of footprint that we had. And my guess is that we can probably deliver that same capability in about 13 to 13.5 million. That was a year before COVID. As we power through COVID, I think the impacts for us from a real estate standpoint, we're seeing an acceleration. We're seeing an acceleration of the need to rationalize. We're seeing an acceleration of the need to consolidate. We were already in a consolidation plan. Most folks know that we moved into the old Aramark Tower and now consider that Jefferson Center. What we're seeing now is a lot of our folks have come to the conclusion. Well, first I want to say that, we have a bunch of heroes at Jefferson who are on the front lines of delivering COVID. And so they were significantly impacted. And we were able to help them out with about $7 million with a Better Together fund for folks that were impacted by that. But the other thing that we saw and that we're seeing now is people are now realizing that they had equal or greater productivity at home than at work. So we've had departments begin to call us and say, you know what, we no longer need space. We're going to continue to work from home. And so I think for us, in light of the fact that we had a pretty sound vision and strategy of what we needed to do before COVID-19, and COVID-19 has validated a lot of the moves that we made in the year before. The edict that I'm getting from Dr. Klasko and our leadership is to accelerate our movement through this. We have a very strong balance sheet. So unlike a lot of health systems that will probably get crushed by COVID-19 as we go forward, Jefferson is highly confident it's going to make it to the other side. And so it's really now just, refocusing on the visions and the objectives that we had prior to COVID-19.
Great. Blaine, tell us, how has the coronavirus affected your company and some of the projects you're working on? And have you had to make any adjustments?
Yes, we have 15 employees. We're located at the Navy Yard. For those of you just joining us, we run a construction project management owner's rep company, and we were able to get a PPP loan, a payroll protection loan from the government, and so we got $192,000, and we were able to keep all our staff. We applied for $250,000, but we were able to keep all our staff. We're accelerating our marketing as we move forward into COVID-19 and with the social unrest. Let me just say this. We've been saying the same thing for 10 years. We've been saying that Philadelphia is one of the most racist cities as it relates to our counterparts on the East Coast. When we look at Washington, when we look at Atlanta, when we look at New York, Philadelphia numbers as it relates to participation. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about construction and real estate. That's what I'm talking about. That's my expertise. We're looking at a 2.5% minority participation rate, especially for Blacks and Latinos. When we look at other cities like Atlanta, we're looking at 36% real. When we look at, 41% Atlanta, we're looking at 36% participation rates on construction and real estate. That's everything from ownership to vending to construction to the trades. But Philadelphia, we're looking at 2.5%. The reports you've seen, ladies and gentlemen, about 30% participation rate in Philadelphia, no such thing, except maybe for Comcast, hopefully now for Jefferson and Leslie, and other projects that we're working on. But for the most part, outside the convention center and Comcast, there's been little or no participation. And that's why Philadelphia has a 30% poverty rate, has the highest poverty rate of any major city in the country. And what the social unrest has taught us is that there's an opportunity for us, because now every day people are calling me to get on these panels, because we're trying to build. We're not trying to burn down. We're not trying to tear down. We're trying to build a city and build this region. I will stop talking. I will stop talking when we see Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all these companies move from Atlanta, move to Philadelphia and say, oh, we're creating too many millionaires. We're creating too many Black millionaires in Atlanta, so we're moving to Philadelphia because you don't. So when that happens, I'll stop talking. But we're moving forward. As a matter of fact, we're hiring. Right now, we're looking for PE. Our staff is 80% minority and women. So right now, we're definitely looking to diversify our staff. So we're looking for, and I saw some engineers on the call, we're looking for a white male or female engineer.
Blaine, what are some of the conversations underway in the real estate and development communities about social injustice and Black Lives Matter and moving the industry forward?
I am hoping that this is a watershed moment. You have to understand, Natalie, that Americans as a society, our memory is very, very short. My kids don't even, I say 911 and they think it's a movie. Do you understand what I'm saying? While 911 affected us in such a fundamental way that we didn't think of flying in airplanes in the same way after 911.
Yeah.
And so I am hoping that this goes past 6 months, but there's just a window of opportunity here for us to make fundamental change. Here's the thing, and I say this, Mitch has heard this 1,000 times. Every dollar we spend circulates in the community 8 times.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we're not creating wealth in the community is because the dollars are not circulating. So diversity and inclusion causes dollars to circulate in the community. So instead of me going to the government for help, I can buy my own food. I can purchase my own health care, and that effect causes more economic activity in the community. And so education, jobs, economic opportunity are all related. And so we've been advocates. We believe that now is the time to talk to the trade unions about integrating the unions, not the laborers union, but the trade unions. Now is the time to talk to owners about how we bring projects to the market. For example, and I'm going to shut up after this. One of the problems with bringing projects to the market in construction is the pre-construction team, the owner's rep, the architect, the engineer, the lawyers, everybody's all white. And then at the end, when the project is ready to go to market, we have a community meeting and say, let's get some minority contractors. It's not going to happen because the pre-construction was all white, and we associate with those we know. We give business to those we know. And so unless we begin to associate more, we won't even know each other, so we can't do business. So forums like this are fantastic because we get to know each other, and people understand that people like us are out here, because I come with 40 or 50, 100 minority contractors. Yes, I have a list. So you can call me after this. I'll give you my list. It's free.
Terrific. Thank you so much. But Leslie, I want to hear from you and some of your thoughts on social injustice and how it's affecting your work and some of the conversations underway in the real estate community now.
Well, it's interesting because much like Blaine, we've been on the right at the front line. I mean, since 2008, when we started our business, that was our mission. That was our goal to make an impact. Because when I started at the Goldenberg Group. And when I was there and I attended consortiums and conventions and meetings, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And that's why it was imperative for my partner and I to just make the leap and start a company. And we did it on no money. We threw our 401ks in and a prayer and said, this is bigger than us. This is a mission for us, that people that are, this is so frustrating. People don't even think in our community that they can do real estate development, because you have to pull back. It's mysterious, right? No one knows what the process is. It's an art, it's a science. And, you know, I had the fortunate opportunity to be at the Goldenberg and see it in its as it's baking, right? So it's so important for us to be able to teach, to expose, to mentor, and that's part of the largest process for us, to be able to expose people that are younger than us to what this is, and to try to give them the knowledge and the support to be able to do this. For me, what I'm seeing differently, because our projects haven't changed. You know, we're always been focused in the neighborhoods, right? But what I'm seeing is that now there is this interest from white people. Let's be very clear. You know, people are, like Blaine said, people are calling us, people want to have a conversation, you know, and which is great, because it's always been uncomfortable, right? No one's wanted to have the dialogue. And now is this moment in time, as Blaine said, that everyone feels compelled. What was interesting is that everyone was home with COVID-19, and it couldn't be avoided. Everyone saw what happened to George Floyd on TV. It opened up everyone's eyes. It's not like it hadn't happened before to multiple people over the years, but this is something that was captured. It was highlighted. Everyone was home. Everyone was being reflective, strategizing, and real focused, right? So here you see this right in front of you on TV, and you can't ignore it. There's no way to ignore this. So now this is just striking a nerve in so many people. And we're thrilled, trust me, that this is happening, because we need this great awakening. For all of the statistics that Blaine provided, there is an inherent, deeply seated problem in Philadelphia when it comes to the real estate industry. It's a generational industry. It's an industry that is built off of wealth. And we don't have, as people of color, either of those things. So access to capital has been an issue. We're starting to see, you know, banks wanting to have panels and discussions about this, because it's imperative. We don't have the type of balance sheets that have grown over years and years of being able to be in business. That's a real deterrent for access to capital. So I welcome all of the conversations. We've been contacted from PNC. We've been contacted by TD Bank, and I'm loving the dialogue, right? So that's the change that I'm seeing, and I agree with Blaine. We have to keep this energy level up, because it can wane, and we can't go back to the normal. There's got to be a new normal. We can't be thinking about this as being a last thought. And there needs to be some real changes and dialogue about the union in Philadelphia. It's an issue. Yeah. And no one really wants to have the hard conversation about it, but it is a deterrent to have the same level and kind of representation on our project that I know that my company wants to see. So that's one conversation I really would like to have with the trades.
That sounds like a good panel conversation for the future.
It is.
I'd love to moderate something like that. I'll roll up my sleeves and moderate that one for sure. Let me hear, Paul, you said you re-examined what you were doing in light of the social justice issues that have really come to a head. I want to hear what the Preservation Alliance is doing. And from here on out, we got to keep our answers a little shorter, but I want to make sure we do hear from everybody.
Okay. Is that the question then?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a process, and it's going to take some time, but we already, going into the pandemic, had put out some feelers or been approached by organizations and individuals about some project possibilities that we're actively working on. So for example, the cake isn't baked yet, but there is an effort underway to put together a historic home repair program in the Strawberry Mansion neighborhood, which is a majority African-American community with great historic architecture that has suffered from decades of disinvestment. And so there's a group, there's the Strawberry Mansion CDC that's leading the charge with the philanthropic community. And they reached out to the Preservation Alliance for assistance on the historic side in terms of the architecture of the historic homes.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is up in Eastern North Philadelphia, which is a majority Latino neighborhood, where we took advantage of a grant opportunity from the National Trust for Historic Preservation to apply for funding to increase the capacity of the Eastern North Arts and Culture Committee to run tours of the history and culture of Eastern North Philadelphia. And what's really neat about it is it's not just about running tours, but it's about providing living wages for the trainers and for the tour guides. And so having economic impact in addition to the cultural impact of exposing Eastern North Philadelphia to a wider audience. And finally, we were already working on and have continued working on efforts to preserve the Docks Thrash House at 23rd and Cecil B. Moore Avenue, which is under serious threat from demolition by neglect and is a historic landmark based on its association with the artist from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, Docks Thrash, who also was a civil rights activist in Philadelphia. So the opportunities are endless for an organization like ourselves to bring together our expertise and know-how and share it with communities across the city. And that's one of the ways we're trying to address that question.
That's terrific. Mitch, I know this is a really important issue for Dr. Klasko, so you have the top leadership embracing this issue, but how does that get translated into what you're doing on the real estate side?
Well, one hat to Dr. Klasko. When he sensed this as an issue, he started hiring people who were sensitized to the issue. So I've had many conversations with Blaine, many conversations with the community as a whole. I mean, within the real estate and the construction community. And I'm the new guy on the block. I will say that Philadelphia is different than most markets I've been in for all the wrong reasons. A lot of the reasons that Blaine talked about. Yeah. I think that, when we look at real estate and facilities, and again, I come from Kaiser Permanente, which was #1 in diversity inclusion and supplier diversity. So I went from the Cadillac of this world, and there it was a business imperative as well as the right thing to do. And when we start looking at it as the business imperative, we start finding opportunities to align our spend, our efforts to ways that we truly build the communities. So I think one of the ways that we've got to do that is to bring more people of color into this sector. I just said hey to a kid. He's a Howard sophomore, and he's here just learning about he wants to learn about corporate real estate. So we're putting him on a sort of an internship plan to learn that. We've got to start walking the walk. As owners, we have to start demanding that, as we spend in the community and as we are working with vendors and contractors, that they're partnering with us to help get capital into underserved parts of the community. And I think, for me, my executive real estate and facilities team here was 100% non-diverse when I got here. It's 50% now. And I was presenting to our board, we're making better decisions. We're making more responsive decisions. We're making more aligned decisions. We're able to game plan better. We're able to find solutions that better align with the community when we have different voices representing the different aspects of the community. And back to my initial question, my initial issue with bottom line, those efforts have allowed us, we're one of the few departments within Jefferson that is actually favorable in budget despite COVID-19, because of a lot of great ideas coming to the table. So we on the owner side have to own part of this. We have to look at West Philadelphia and North Philadelphia and say that we're accountable for some of that too, and really start to take action to make a difference.
That's terrific. I'm glad we've spent the most of our time on these two big issues. They're not going away anytime soon, and there's going to be continued conversations, and I'm looking forward to revisiting these issues and seeing what sort of progress is made. Let me shift a little bit and get into the building environment, and let's get into the tax abatement and other legislation affecting real estate and preservation. And we can touch on affordable housing as well. But Leslie, let me let you kick this one off. How important is the tax abatement to getting a project done in Philadelphia? And do you have any thoughts about the rolling back of the abatement?
Well, over the last 10 years, as you indicated at the beginning, Natalie, it's had significant positive impact in real estate development in the city. And we've benefited by it tremendously. But I guess my short answer is, if we're all in the same boat at the same time, I think that we'll all adjust to it. Mm-hmm. I do know that the city is in desperate need of additional revenue, and one of the ways to generate that revenue is through taxes, real estate taxes. So, obviously I would love to be I would love to say keep the tax abatement indefinitely, because there was a great upside to it, but I also know that the city is challenged, and I think it is the best way possible to be able to ramp it down the way that they're suggesting, or the way that they've agreed to do it, so that we don't see just a real significant impact right out the gate, but that we can properly prepare and plan our projects in a way that's accommodating for that. So, it is what it is, and the need is real, and we will adjust. And I think because it's a collective effort, it's not just that it's some parts of the city versus other parts of the city. It's nothing like that. It's across the board. Yeah. I think all developers are just going to have to accommodate for it.
Yeah. Hey, Blaine, how about you? What are your thoughts on the tax abatement and the rolling back of it, and the pros and cons, and how it might affect your work?
Natalie, there are a lot of developers and contractors on the call, and I want to say something to them because I want everybody to get something before they leave. I want to talk about COVID because, again, I think Mitch has said, and Mitch is my boss, so I got to be careful. Mitch and Leslie are my bosses. I am one of those people. I hate staying at home, hate it. And so there's an opportunity here. Mm. As you can see from the dumbness that has happened in the South, people don't want to be at home. Mm. There's an opportunity for developers to create gathering places after COVID. And I think that's a real economic opportunity for people to build things where people can gather in a safe way going forward. So I'm not one of those that's going to work out of home. I hate it. In the office environment, we need to figure out how to create safe partitions. So I hated the open concept in office. Now we're going back to offices, thank God. So I just want developers to know that real estate is coming back. I see Ben laughing. Real estate is coming back, but the people that are going to make money in real estate have to start thinking outside the box. The first thing when King of Prussia opened, I was there walking around. Did I buy anything? Not really. I just wanted to go to King of Prussia and walk around. And so people hate being at home. There's one sector that says, people are going to stay at home. And then there's another sector that says, I hate being at home. I don't want to work at home. I don't want to see my wife 24 hours a day. It makes me not like her, and she's on this call probably. But what I'm saying is I want to come home and see you after 8 hours, and a lot of people want that. So I'm not going in here. Okay, time out. All right, tax abatement.
Okay.
Natalie,
Natalie. Yes,
the
Blaine.
tax abatement is a mistake. I love the tax abatement. What the city of Philadelphia needs to do is keep the tax abatement and start building affordable home ownership. This city has not built affordable home ownership in 20 years. And that's one of the reasons for the wealth gap, because for most people, their home is their biggest asset. So this city continues to build affordable nothing is wrong with building affordable housing for rentals. Nothing is wrong for targeting 20% and 30% of AMI, average metropolitan income. There's nothing wrong with that. But they keep building rental, which creates no wealth except for the developer, and they keep building homeless housing, and nothing is wrong with that. Somebody's going to say, Blaine said the city shouldn't build. No, what I said was they should build affordable housing because that creates wealth in gentrifying neighborhoods rather than just have gentrification with no benefit to the existing homeowners that have been there for 30, 40 years.
Good point. Thank you very much. We only have 4 minutes left, so
Sorry.
Could I say something about the tax abatement just very quickly?
absolutely. I was going to ask you.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were, wow, it's amazing. Time's up. One aspect of the tax abatement that has not been as well understood is that with the rollback of the abatement scheduled for January 1st, the renovation and rehab of existing structures is still going to be eligible for the full abatement, which is sort of going full circle, because when the tax abatement was first passed, as Natalie said, it was really only for rehab at a time when Center City had a bunch of vacant and underutilized office towers, and they were converted into apartments and hotels. Then it was expanded to new construction also. Now it's being rolled back to some degree, but it will still be available at its current level and recent level for rehabs. And so all developers out there and investors, please think about that as you're looking for where to invest your capital going forward, because the tax abatement will still be available at its current level after January 1st for rehabs.
Terrific. Thank you, Paul. All right, and the 2 minutes that we have left, my question to you is, if you had a magic wand, what would you do with it as it relates to either Philadelphia, to real estate, to what you do? And Mitch, since I'll throw it to you first, and then we'll go down the row. So Mitch, if you had a magic wand, how would you use it?
If I had a magic wand, and I'm not going to be selfish and say something for myself, but I would bring prosperity to West and North Philadelphia.
Very nice.
And I think that the rising tide lifts all ships. We do that, and you've got an enduring, sustaining model for Philadelphia as a whole.
Terrific. Blaine, you have 5 seconds. That's it. What are you doing?
I'm gonna pass to Paul and Leslie.
Okay. Terrific. Leslie, tell us, with your magic wand, what
Social and economic inclusion and some restructuring of the union.
That's a very nice. And Paul, with your magic wand, how would you use it?
Well, I would eliminate COVID and racism, but since I don't have a magic wand, I think we can look to places like Atlanta that have blazed a better trail when it comes to racial equity and justice in this industry. And on COVID, we can look to places that have really flattened the curve, like Europe, and do the things that they did so that we can minimize the impact of COVID, even though I don't have the magic wand to get rid of it.
Terrific.
Awesome, Paul.
Yeah, at this time, I want to thank all the panelists for your time today. Mitch, Blaine, Paul, Leslie, and I want to thank the audience very much. And at this time, I'm going to hand it back to Ben, and thank you all very much. This is a great conversation.